Let's go. Welcome to the main event. Applying pressure, but I promise I ain't make it then. In their heads, living free, I ain't paying rent. Wake up in the AM, making G's like Mercedes-Benz. Whoa, yeah, please don't take it.
Welcome to the Pinnacle Living Podcast, helping you reach the pinnacle of both life and business. Today we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Travis Vincent. Bro, I'm so glad to have you here, bro.
Dude, I'm stoked to be here.
You are one of the people, and I hope people think I'm not being genuine. And I hope if I never say it, people are like, oh, Gabe doesn't like this guy. But dude, you're one of my genuine favorite people in our company because I know the quality of person you are, how you treat people, how you treat clients. And you just got a beautiful family, dude. Every time you come to town with a wife and kids, I'm like, bro, can I just have like 1,000 Travises like around me at all times? But dude, thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's it's a blessing being here.
Dude, talk to us about the beginning, kind of how you came to Pinnacle, how you came to the insurance space, how all that started for you, because your stories is one of my favorite, both in kind of how you started your journey. There's an inspiration to me, like just hearing it helps me remember like how the incredible transformation people can have. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, I feel like it's been a minute, right? It's been a couple of years now. But it was a good friend of mine, Mike Erveline, works out of this office too. You know, he's the one that initially talked to me about the insurance business. And I think it was like the summer of 2020. He wasn't even in yet, but he was like he had already made up his mind that he was going to be leaving his career to get into the insurance industry. So he was trying to explain it to me. And I remember him telling me that like, oh yeah, there was, people are making really good income, and the numbers that he was explaining to me made zero sense. I'm like, that sounds like a scam, right? It sounded insane to me.
And for reference for people, talk about kind of where you had been with sales, where you were at the time.
Yeah, so for like 8 years, I was running a call center, and it was kind of like sales, but a little bit different, meaning we were raising money for police and firefighters. So it wasn't like you're selling a product, but in a way you're selling, the concept of helping out the first responders, right? A lot of cold calling. It was all over the phone. So there was definitely some sales training involved. And I'd been there for like 8 years. I think the first couple of years I was just a rep, did so well with it that then they promoted me. And then for, at least like 5 or 6 years, I was kind of running the place, trying to train agents to have success. So that's kind of where I was at. And then I know Mike was working for a lawn care company. Yeah. And me and Mike, we've been good friends for a long time. We're from the same area of the country. We went to Bible college together. So, we've always kept in touch. And it's usually about like sports stuff, right? It was always like the Celtics and Patriots and stuff like that. And so I remember, again, I was working a ton of hours at this call center, and he had reached out. He's like, hey, me and Olivia, we're going to be out in the area visiting family. We'd love to just swing by Manchester and see you in Irma for a day. And it's so funny because I think back, I remember thinking like, man, my schedule's busy. Maybe I'll just tell him next time. And I remember saying, hey, let me put in a request to take the day off. So glad I did that looking back, right? Because like where we are today. Yeah. But yeah, I put in the request. I was granted the day off. And again, that's even funny thinking about that I had to ask for time off, right? That's another perk about the insurance industry. And then we just pretty much had a double date and spent the day. And that's fast forward. That's when Mike was trying to explain to me about what he had found and what he was going to be getting into. So that's kind of where it started.
Which is really funny because I just did one of these with Mike not too long ago. And I'm often reminded about, because it's been years I've been working with you guys now. I'm often reminded of just like the situation people came from. Like Mike had been working at the same place for like going on 15 years, like over 10 years, doing sales work, training teams, and just very much capped, very much frustrated. I'm thinking about you, same thing. Learn how to do something to a level of excellence, training other people to do it. Yeah. And then, I'm sure knowing in the back of your mind, like, dude, I should be making a significant amount more, or I just have more ability and just not sure, how to make that jump. Because, you got family, you got bills. It's a risk. What was that like for you coming into this industry? Now, Mike had already been in, right, by the time you got in for a little bit.
Yeah,
I think he'd been in for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that. So you'd seen him kind of have some ups and downs, have some success. Where was your mindset starting, and then how did that beginning look for you?
Yeah, so because I remember, so when he had originally told me about what he was going to be doing, again, it sounded exciting, and I was definitely capped right at where I was at. I had in my head I already chalked it up to like, well, I guess this is what it is. You just gotta like work really hard, and hopefully you can save enough money to have a decent retirement and live an okay life. That's pretty much what I kind of thought was right the working career. And I know Mike was in the same boat at the place that he was working. So when he originally told me about the insurance industry, I think it was like that. It's like the handcuffs, right? You feel like yes, I'm not making the potential that I wanted to make, but at the same time, like, well, the bills were paid.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? So it's like the scariness of like doing something where, hey, you're not guaranteed a paycheck was a big concern for me at the beginning. And so I think when Mike initially invited me to partner with him, I was like, well, I'll just watch you do it for a while and let me know how it goes. And to be honest, I don't even know if I had an intent on joining. I was just trying to be a good friend, like, hey, let me see how it goes. But I think after watching Mike for about 6 months and start to have success, right? He was like sharing his successes with me. Then it was like keeping me up at night.
Yeah.
I remember like I couldn't sleep sometimes at night. Be like, man, I got to get out of here what I'm doing, because if Mike can do it, like, why not me?
Yeah.
And so that eventually got to the point, I still remember it was like a cold February day up in New England, freezing cold. I'm going to work. I'm just frustrated having one of those days. And then I just called Mike. I'm like, hey, I'm going to try it out. What do I got to do? And then from there, kind of the rest is history. And again, it wasn't always easy. I'll kind of talk about some of the bumps I had along the way, but definitely, definitely the best decision I made for sure.
You know what I love about that story, and for people that watched Mike's interview, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Of course, you do. Mike had just gone full time. He'd only been in full time a couple months, and he had one of the roughest starts that I think most people have had, because the mail was down. We were doing all mail at that time for leads, and his was sitting at a mail house in Nashville because like COVID had caused it to like shut down.
Yeah.
And so he had one of the toughest starts, and then by like January to February, it just broke through.
Yeah.
And it's just so, and for everyone on here, just you never win and you never lose by yourself.
Yeah.
Like, people think those are by themselves sometimes. Think, okay, if I win, I did this, and if I lose, I do it by myself. Dude, you always have people with you.
Yeah.
And Mike might not, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Knowing the kind of guy that Mike is, this was probably in the back of his head. But he knew him winning was so much more than just him winning, because you were watching.
Right, yeah.
And you saw those big numbers.
Yeah.
After that, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You're like, look what Mike can do. And then that attitude you had, dude, is just a key to everyone who has success here. Why not me?
Yeah.
I remember having that same thought, even my first couple of weeks, really struggling and being like, man, if they can do it though, why not me?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, so when did you actually start? When was your first appointment? When did that happen?
Yep. So I finally passed my test, got licensed, got some leads in my hands. And this, to be honest, my first dial day, never forget this, was my birthday.
Oh.
It was April 19 of 2021. And so, and obviously, like, surprise, how dialing goes, right? You're in for a rude awakening. Even though I had phone experience, like, this is something different, right? You had to learn, how, like, the lead type, what they were looking for, how to call them, things like that. So that's when I started. I was only doing it part-time because, remember, again, I was still in the back of my head, I was like, hey, I'm the only one working. My wife's a stay-at-home mom to her 2 little kids. I didn't, I always felt like I didn't want to jeopardize like our livelihood or put Irma and the kids in a bad spot. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll just try to juggle both for a bit. So that's what I did for the first couple months. But what's funny is, like, again, I had a really slow start. So April part-time, I didn't help a single family. Like, nothing happened in April, even though I was spending money on leads. And then May rolls around, and all of a sudden I finally get a lady to She says yes. She wants my help. She buys, right? And then the next day, she immediately changes her mind. Like it's one of those like, hey, sorry, Travis, I'm really sorry. You're a great guy, but we just can't afford it. And we're going to head another direction. And I remember thinking like, no, it was like my first one ever, right? So I remember asking Mike, because again, this is like my low point, I feel like. I remember asking Mike, I was like, man, I remember believing, because like Mike's in the Chicago area, I'm up in the New England area. And I remember actually telling Mike, well, maybe my area is harder. You know, maybe everyone in Chicago wants insurance, right?
Right.
It sounds so silly thinking about that now, but that's literally what I told him.
Sure.
Because I couldn't figure out like why it wasn't working for me. And again, I think I was missing the fact that Mike Similar had a slower start too, that he had to figure out before he got up and running. And it is what it is. Like anything in life, right? There's a period of time where, you know, you have to kind of go through the struggle. You know, somebody once said to me, you got to die to get to heaven, right? So you got to go through that to get to where you want to go. And I guess I missed that. I just assumed that, hey, I was going to come in and right off the bat, I was going to start doing awesome.
Yeah.
And some of it was self-inflicted. I think what I love Mike, is, even though being a good friend, right? And this had to be awkward for Mike, but Mike kind of had that come to Jesus moment with me. And he just like, well, first off, let's look in the mirror, you know, because again, I'm trying to compare his success, and he's running 30 appointments a week, working like 6 days a week, 50 hours a week, versus me, I'm running like 5 appointments a week, only working maybe a Saturday and half a Sunday. And so there's the big difference there. Like Mike basically told me, look, I've probably run hundreds of appointments. You haven't even cracked 20 yet.
Right.
That's the difference. And it was hard for me to hear because like here I am spending money on leads. I thought I was making a good effort, but you know, Mike was right in a lot of areas. You know, so yeah, I think I was like mad at Mike for like maybe an afternoon, and then I was like, all right, he's correct in some of what he's saying. So I basically said to Mike, all right, Mike, so I don't know what else to do. I'm out of lead money. So what would you recommend? Like, how do I get better from here? And then Mike basically said, well, how many of those leads that you bought in the last like 6 weeks never answered the phone? And I'm like, well, there's a ton. And so he said, so here's what I would do. I would talk to Irma, find a weekend that you can get out of the house and literally door knock every lead that didn't answer the phone and just get in front of them. And if that doesn't work, give me a call. We'll see what we can do. And so I'm like, well, I guess I can do that. So I remember talked to Irma. She took the kids out for the weekend. I just plugged in I had like tons of leads. I plugged them in Road Warrior, which is like an app that can like route you around so you're not like zigzagging around the state and wasting time. And I literally just spent all day Saturday, all day Sunday door knocking. And I ended up helping like 6 families that weekend. And then it became real, you know, especially.
And at what point, real quick, because I want people to have a timeline for this in their head, because that's one of the things I love about your story is, so you started officially in April of 2021. When, from between that and this instance that we're talking about, what's the gap between April and this weekend that you're talking about?
So this is like June. So we're about a little over 60 days in. I'm like 2 months in.
And are you still part-time?
I'm still part-time.
And I think that's something, Travis, now being in this industry for several years, 3 years at this point, right over 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And seeing a lot of people come in, having some successful agents, you know, on your team, and obviously having an incredible amount of success yourself. How much harder is it coming in part-time than it is coming in full-time? And how much do you think that affected you?
Honestly, again, I would never change my story, but going back, I think if I started full-time, I would have gotten all the struggles out of the way, like inside of 30 days, instead of dragging that out a couple of months.
Yeah.
And again, that would have felt different too. So yeah, my advice, like, you know, if you're full-time and you really put your head down, you can probably get a lot of your lumps out of the way in the first couple of weeks versus, again, what I was doing, like, you know, 2-3 months in before I could figure it out.
Yeah. And now what I want to talk about now, and I want to connect this to my favorite part of your beginning story. I remember you like got on my radar sometime around that June. Yeah. You know, so sometime around when this happened, you had a big like, oh, this is, you know, Mike's friend. I think we had met in passing one time before. And so I'm seeing you there. And at that point, were you full-time? When did you go full-time?
So I went full-time, so in July.
Okay.
So after that big month in June, got a little bit of confidence and made the jump. So July, I was officially full-time.
And if memory serves me right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, July and August were not phenomenal months.
Correct. Yeah. So I had this awesome weekend in June. I'm like, yes, we're going full time. I go full time. And then again, I did okay. I survived in July and August, but I was just surviving. Wasn't doing great.
Explain what that looked like when we say surviving. Like, why was it difficult? Like, what was happening? And just be honest. I want people to really hear, because dude, what you're doing now. And just a quick preface, we'll just go ahead and say this now. If you had to have guess, roundabout number, how much insurance you've done in the last 3 years total that you personally have written, what would it be?
Probably right around like $1 million, I think, at this point.
Yeah, because I know you had 2 months where you were over 400,000. So 2 years over 400,000, and even that first year.
Yeah.
How much was that first?
It was like 120 that first year. So yeah, I'm like right at $1 million.
Yeah.
I got to be over that maybe by now.
Oh yeah, and I mean this year so far, what have you written?
I'm forgetting 2024. Yeah.
What are you at so far for this year? Do you know?
Just at like 200.
Yeah. So you've written well in excess over $1 million in business.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's so important to hear this beginning journey. Because I think some people, Travis, they come in and just like you thought, like looking back, it was so silly, but like, oh, people in Massachusetts, they're just harder than people in Chicago. Some people come in and they think, oh, well, Travis just has a gift.
Yeah.
Like, of course he has 95% persistency. He writes 400, 500K a year. Well, Travis is really great at this. He's just talented. I don't have that. Yeah. And then when you hear your story, it's so obvious that is not the case.
Yeah.
That you, like, I think you definitely have talents in this business, but you had to work for what you got. So why were those months difficult? July, August.
Yeah, I think, again, still brand new, right? Not really, again, not, I guess, utilizing the training enough. But I think the big thing, though, for me, I wasn't doing the little things, right? Like, when I say I was surviving, right, I had enough money to pay for my leads every week and pay some bills, but I almost felt like I was kind of back in that same rat race as when I worked in the corporate world, right? Sure. So that's where I was my first 2 months full time. Again, but little things that I changed, I think, to break out of that. Again, back then we had windshield time, right? So we're driving like, I mean, I probably drove hundreds of miles because we're doing like in-home appointments, right? Of course. So instead of listening to like sports radio and music, right? That's what I was doing, right? I mean, great. None of that stuff is going to help me become a better sales agent.
Right.
So I changed and started, I treated my car like YouTube University, where I'm only listening to stuff that's going to help me in an appointment, right? Or like little things, which sounds ridiculous now, but let's say long day, right? I got told no all day. I have one appointment. It's in the opposite direction of where I live. I'm like, you know what? I'll just call them and reschedule. And, you know, flip side, nowadays, if I have one appointment and it's like way out of the way, or one appointment it's like 8:30, or I stop dialing at 9 o'clock right now. Well, hey, if it's 8:50, well, I stop at 9, right? So it's like just the little things like that I think separate the people that have success versus the people that don't.
Sure.
Right? Because winners do the small things over and over and over and over again. And I think that's what I had to learn early on when I went full time.
Sure. And then talk about this real quick, because I don't want to overshadow this. It's obvious to me, Travis, because you were going through some very difficult times. Like February, April, May, not a lot happened. You're going part-time. June, a good week. And let's put those into numbers. How much did you write June, July, August? Do you remember?
Yeah, so June, which was only that one big weekend that I exploded, it was like a little over $6,000.
Okay.
July for the month, I wrote 7,500.
Okay.
That's for the month.
Yeah.
And then August was 12.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I was trending.
So yeah, and then I remember you said you had your first sale ever was a chargeback.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious considering you have the best persistency in our company right now. Like in the 90s on everything. And then some of those hit July, if I remember correctly, from June, because you're still learning. And then August. You going through these difficult times, like you said, you obviously got out of the corporate world because you're trying to get out of the rat race. You still very much feel like you're in it and working harder than ever to be in a rat race. So I'm sure that was discouraging. But you believe that you could make it. And it's obvious by all these changes, because the reason you turned your car into a university, the reason you're reaching out to Mike nonstop for help, is you believed I can win. And if other people are doing this, why not me? Where do you think that belief comes from?
Yeah, I think honestly, it was like I said, I was just seeing other people in this business do it, right? Because like I think the way the world is, right? The world tells you like, oh, you're not good enough, you can't do that, right? That's just an average how most people are raised, right? But I think for me, just seeing Mike have success, seeing you have success, like other people that I, went to the Bible college with. Like I think of Richie Crahall, he pops in my head. He was having success. So seeing people I knew,
Right.
again, I just kept falling back on like, well, again, there's nothing different about me than them.
Yeah.
We have a similar background. They must be doing something a little bit different, meaning maybe they're, again, going the extra mile. Maybe they're putting in the training. They're trying to get better. They're running more appointments. That's what it always came down to. So I just understood, like Mike used to always tell me, if you just put in more work or get in front of more people, you're just stacking the deck in your favor.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I started getting good at, is just getting in front of people, more people.
And this might be obvious to some listeners it might not, but I really want this to get in people's heads. Travis, had you had a little bit different attitude, had you maybe instead of applying that time being like, let me look on Indeed, see what other jobs are going on, instead of, listening to the training videos, you were, maybe continue just listening to music. Maybe instead of reaching out to Mike, you were just like, I'll figure it out on my own. Do you think you would have broke through?
I don't think so. I think if I had the wrong perspective, right? Because I think human nature is, right, we love ourselves way too much, right? So if I just loved myself too much, like, oh, I got this, it's not working out because of this, and I pointed every other direction other than inward, then who knows, maybe I'd be back in the corporate world or looking for something else to do, which again, I think a lot of people sometimes do that. So I'm just grateful. Again, I had good mentorship from Mike, good support system with my wife, Irma. Again, those people believed in me, and I think just with those two alone, I was like, well, I got to do this for them, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, I got a lot of help too from like you and other people that came before me, and there's a part of it that I was like, well, they're investing into me. I can't let them down.
Yeah.
So I got to at least go all out and see what I can do.
Yeah. I remember right around, it was August that we field trained. Is that right? Or September? I always forget.
That was August, yeah.
It was August. So, and I think, and I want every mentor to hear this, because it became obvious to me. Because I'm going to be honest, Travis, when I first started bringing people in that car with me, there was a part of my head that was like, man, what if people see me have a bad day?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what the answer to that was. I'm like, I guess it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And those agents aren't going to get the same help as other agents, will, when they see me have a good day. And I was like, I guess it's just part of the equation. That's kind of what I chalked it up to. And then I started, yours was one of the first ones where I had a pretty rough day. Now, we ended up writing a couple policies, but I remember the first beginning of our day, I think I had you, Mike's dad, and Tom. It was back to back to back, 3 days where I was field training someone new every day. And yours was the roughest out of the three. Because I remember, I think our first like 4 or 5 appointments, they were like sits, no sales. We're driving a lot around. And then we close a couple people. I think I discovered that when people see me have that rough day, it's more impactful to them, right?
Yeah.
Because if they see me just like go out there and crush it, they're like, oh, Gabe just has something I don't. But when they see me get the same nose that they do, and I know the same is true for your agents. A lot of people shatter you, on live dials. Like, they see that as well. What did you take away from that day? Because obviously it wasn't just that, but the very next month you wrote 60K in business.
Yeah.
So what do you think was the culmination of what you were learning? I think you told us a lot there, and maybe what you learned, if anything, from that day and how that went into play to that 60K a month.
Yeah, because I remember, that to me, that was the turning point. Like that car ride with you, the field training that day. Because you're right. I remember, you were getting smoked, right, early in the day. Yeah. I saw you get porched.
Yeah.
I saw like someone just like aggressively, hey, we don't want this. I saw you go in the home and just like, sorry, she's not going to make a decision. I saw you get no-showed. And what's funny is I remember before I did that field training with you, I remember running into all those same things. And again, the negative person in my head would always tell myself, well, other agents don't run into this. Like, you're just doing something really fundamentally wrong. And so I thought I had like so much to change because I thought I was so far off from actually being a good, productive agent. And then seeing that first half of the day with you, I'm like, no way, Gabe gets porched too?
Yeah.
Because like you were a Hall of Fame producer, right? And then seeing you get no-showed and then you kind of go through all that. I'll be honest, like midway through the day, I think we grabbed like a quick bite to eat. I had already mentally like something happened in my head where I'm like, okay, I got this.
Before you
Like,
even saw me have the success.
Right, yeah.
You're like, because you knew,
Yeah.
because I think you were the last day, I think I'd already written like
Yeah,
10K
yeah.
that week
Yeah.
or something. And so you're putting those two things together. Okay, wait, he wrote 10K. Two people you knew were there and saw it, so it wasn't like I made it up.
Yeah.
And like, this still happens.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, I love that you
Yeah.
said that. You're like, before I even, it was the same thing with Joanne.
Yeah.
I remember, I blanked that day. And
Yeah.
at the beginning of the day, she's like, I don't know if I can go into this full time. At the end of the day, she's like, I'm going to quit my job. Because she's like, this guy writes 30, 40 a month. And if he can go out and have days like this, because maybe that's what people are afraid of.
Yeah.
We're afraid of rough days. We're afraid of no's. We're afraid of feeling bad because someone was rude to us. And then when you're like, oh, wait, those things can happen. I can feel that way and still crush it.
Yeah, yeah.
It becomes like this strength.
Yeah.
From it's like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, because I remember even driving back, right? Because we're in Connecticut. It's like 2 hours away from where I live in New Hampshire, which is just north of Boston. And so I remember driving back saying, so Gabe just had this like horrible, like 3/4 of a day, yet he made as much as I did last month. And I remember thinking like, okay, so I think I'm good as long as I do what Gabe did, right? Just, again, I'm going to run every appointment and just, again, I'm just going to put the clients first and again, work on myself, make sure that the attitude's right, I'm being trained properly, all that stuff, like I'm good. And then next thing you know, it was like momentum, obviously, because I think I drove back, it was like a Saturday, I think I closed one deal that Saturday night before I went home, took Sunday off, and then Monday was like a training day. And then it was like almost like an avalanche where I just went out with a different mindset on that Tuesday. And then it was like every day I felt like I was going out. I was like, now all of a sudden I feel like I can't miss, which is weird because like, and then I was like, well, I got to keep going then because like, when you're hot, I want to keep it rolling. And then the rest is history. September was like a massive month. Like I said, it was like 60K.
And let me ask you a personal question. We'll edit it out if this makes you
Yeah.
uncomfortable anyway.
Yeah.
But for people at home, how much were you making a year before?
Yeah, and you do not have to edit this out, but I was 60 grand a year working at that call center for like 8 years.
So getting your butt absolutely whooped April, May, June, July, August, and then your 6 month making in that 1 month what you were making in a year. Dude, how did
Totally
that
worth it.
feel?
I mean, it felt like liberating.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like every struggle that I went through those 5 months prior, it didn't even matter. It was like worth it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I could never speak to this, right? But like my wife would probably tell you, like, giving birth to our 2 kids, like again, the struggle a woman goes through, right? It's like they forget about all the pain and the labor once they have
When
the
you're
child.
holding that baby.
Yeah, and again, Irma would slap me. I'm not a woman. I'm not saying I pretend I know, but that's the.
Did you get home and you're like, Irma, I know exactly what you
I
went
know
through
what
in
you went through.
childbirth.
Yeah,
Don't lie to me.
yeah. So again, it's like, but that's what I'd liken it to. It was like literally, I forgot about all like the negative. I don't know if I can do this. Like this is not working out for me. All of a sudden, it was all worth it after that. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's phenomenal. And I'm sure that was, speaking of Irma, speaking of your family, I'm sure that was a breath of relief for her. She's like, man, he's got it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure. And then, so obviously, and just real quick for people, because I want people to know, you've been doing this a couple years now. What has this done for your family? Like being able to bring in this kind of income, to have a different, work schedule, to have a different, we were just talking about your plans for the next year or two now, where you're at. Like what has this done for you?
It's been amazing. Like I know money doesn't buy happiness, right? It's like life is not about money, but what I love about money is it gives you the freedom to be able to make choices, right? And so what I mean by that is like, it's funny because Irma, every time we visit Mike, she's thanking Mike for introducing this business to me. That's the relationship she's got with Mike at this point. But it's like, so I've been to Disney World like twice now, right? And we're thinking about making it an annual thing for the kids, right? I could have we couldn't even go once on the salary that I was at before, right?
Right.
If we ever go out to eat, right? I remember we'd have to like budget. Again, this is a small, silly thing for some, right? But I used to have to budget, like, hey, do I have enough money to, like, buy this meal?
Right.
It's like now, again, I'm not saying we eat out all the time, but, like, whenever we do want to go out, I don't have to worry about the price or what we're going to get. if Irma ever needs something for the kids, right, or something comes up for their school, okay, before I had to really figure out how we're going to pay for this, and now, oh yeah, that's no problem. Let's just get it because the kids need it, right? And it's just like things like that that I think go a long way. We can give more, right? It's like to causes that we believe in. If we're trying to help out someone else, it's hard to help out someone else if you need the help, right?
Right.
And I think that's what the insurance industry has done for us, for sure.
Dude, that's beautiful. Everything's, and dude, I mean, 100% the same. I remember I was, we went to the same seminary, Bible college.
Yeah.
And obviously you don't do that to make money. And I was very, very passionate about the work I was doing. And, but I mean, and I worked hard, I worked hard to provide for things and wanting to give. But yeah, I remember always, checking on this and that if I ever needed, and just have the financial freedom where I didn't feel, and I think it's especially, Travis, because I think financial literacy is a big thing we want to teach people too. But when you don't feel like you have to keep up with the Joneses, the freedom that just like, oh, things are good. Like I'm not worried about making this bill on time or that on time. I mean, that's a beautiful thing in of itself. Whenever I think, a lot of people think of like financial freedom, they take it to the far end where I'm living in a mansion. Like, I guess I'm not hating on anybody that wants to do that.
Right.
But at the same time, dude, just being able to provide for your family, to not have that financial stress on your spouse's back, for your kids to experience that. I mean, I grew up, I knew I was poor. Growing up because, and my mom, because I knew my mom didn't want to restrict anything to me. But I mean, I regularly heard we can't afford that.
Yeah.
And how that must feel knowing you can give your kids whatever they need, even things they don't need, but they just want, like a trip to Disney World is really powerful. So that's beautiful, dude. What outlook on business do you think you have now as far as like what you want to achieve in this business over the next couple of years, where you see this for you? Because obviously you're 3 years in, we're in over $1 million in business just in a few years, which is incredible. Where do you see this taking you and your family now? Yeah,
so I think the next goal is here. What I love about this business, I feel like there's endless opportunities, right, to better yourself, grow your business. I think I've produced at a high level for a long time on my own. Definitely looking to take that next step and start to build a large agency, kind of like what you and Mike have done, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like somebody one time said this to me, that like, so you and Mike have helped way more families with insurance than I ever have, right? And if you think about it, well, it's because everyone that you've trained, number one, you're helping another family there, right? Because they're an agent now that maybe can experience financial freedom, like I was just talking about, right?
Right.
But then two, you're also helping those clients get covered. So I think just being able to build an agency, teach others to kind of, have what I'm able to enjoy, the freedom with the family and not so tight on the finances is really something I want to do next, I think.
Yeah.
Trying to find the right people, of course.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And you're located where? Your office?
Manchester, New Hampshire.
Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to work with you, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can just call me or text. My cell is 603-264-9038. Or you can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. t.vince19 is my Instagram handle.
Dude, I can't imagine coming in with you as an upline. Dude, that would be genuinely, and I can't give a more sincere compliment. I can't imagine someone I would love to work with. If I could go back in time and choose, and I had a great upline coming in, but dude, the persistency you have with your clients, the way I know you care about people and agents, bro, I would love to have you as an upline. So if you're out there and you're seriously looking into getting in this industry, I mean, wherever you are in the country, but especially in that area, dude, hit up Travis. Travis, you've given us a lot today. This has been phenomenal. If I could ask one more thing from you, obviously there's going to be a lot of active agents watching this. I'm sure people considering the industry, but a lot of people, probably couple thousand from Pinnacle that are going to watch this and, wonder about their journey, compare themselves to you. Maybe some that are finally getting some, maybe they just had that big weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe they sold that first client and the policy charged back, just like yours did. And they're wondering if they can do this. If you could give that person one piece, if you could speak directly to them that you think would be a blessing, what would you say?
So I would just say, like, always ask yourself, like, why not you, right? So if you're putting the client first, and you're working hard, right? Putting in the work ethic, going the extra mile, to me, it's impossible that it wouldn't work out. You just have to make sure that, again, your biggest critic is always yourself, right? Because like the person in between the ears is the guy that always tries to convince me, like, oh yeah, you can't do that. You know, good luck with that. But if you can silence that person, you can go far in life and this industry, really in doing anything.
Yeah.
Because again, to me, in the insurance industry, you don't need talent, right? To do this. You just need a coachable, positive mindset, and you need the work ethic.
Yeah.
So I would just say, why not you? And just make sure that you're putting in the work, and don't quit, right? Because imagine had I quit right before June, or what if I quit right before we did the ride along in August? I think my life would look a lot different now.
Yeah. Dude, I think about that all the time. My first week in insurance, I got absolutely trashed. And I made one sale at the very end that just paid for my leads. And the thought clicked into my head, dude, maybe I should just stop here. Like I didn't lose anything. Like this is hard. Like I think that thought it was in and out. It was gone in a second because I believed in myself. But the thought was definitely there. And I've thought back many times that next weekend I would help 7 families. Yeah. And that's when I started recruiting a lot of people. I've thought many times, dude, what if I had quit before then? How different my life would be. Yeah. So those are very powerful words. Travis, this has been phenomenal. Dude, you're one of my favorite people at Pinnacle. Dude, thank you so much for hopping on. Thank you for joining us today. God bless you. Have a great rest of your day, and I hope this has been a help to you.